Come on, more calls. Final fucking podcast episode slash recap slash first episode slash fucking episode. Yeah, so this episode's more just like I should have done this one at the fucking start, man. I should have when I watch most podcasts, they do an introduction podcast where they talk about themselves a little bit, introduce themselves and talk a little bit about themselves and why they're doing what they're doing and shit like that. But obviously I'm doing everything backwards because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. But so for my last one, it's going to be my introduction to myself, tell you guys a little bit about myself and why I got into this and why I'm doing this project and stuff like that. It's a little bit different doing it without talking to a second party. It feels a bit different anyway, but it'll be sweet as. Where to start? Well, first of all, if you guys see this and you guys haven't seen any of my other stuff, my name's Tuhoe Jones. I was born in Hastings, Flaxmere. I was a home birth. I was the first home birth out of my mum's side, so she tells me, or that she knows of. So I'm the chosen child, the special child. She's told me as well. I don't know if she was just gassing me up or whatever, but she said I've got a different or special aspect because I was the only home birth child. And you don't really hear too much people saying that they're home birth. Most people are born in hospitals and stuff like that. But I was born in Flaxmere, Hastings, down right at the end of the Ave. Grew up in Hastings for about 7 years before my old man asked me if I wanted to move to Auckland with him. Life in Hastings, what I can remember of it anyway, is it was pretty rough, but because I was the youngest, I was pretty fucking, I guess all my siblings and shit say that I was spoiled as and shit. So they used to always pick on me and shit. But life as I can remember is it was pretty sweet, being around or family and siblings and grandparents and stuff like that. And because it was pretty fucking, it's a pretty rough place. Most people know it as a pretty rough place. A lot of people know the nicer area, Napier, to be quite nice, but once you venture in a little bit and start heading into the kennel, that's when it starts fucking getting a little bit rougher, but it's still fucking beautiful. As nice as the people there, they're just fucking moldy as, they're fucking chill, bro. Say what's up or whatever and shit like that, and pretty friendly. Even though they don't look friendly, it's just it's hard down there. It's rough. It's a hard life down there. So people just look a bit rougher, but it's just because just a bit more moldy. People don't really care too much about appearance and stuff like that compared to somewhere up in Auckland where it's a bit different. People oh fucking hell. But yeah, life for me in Hastings and Flaxmere anyway was pretty fucking decent. My old lady, she was I think Mormon or something to do with church, because I was baptized when I was little and we used to go to church all the time. I can remember going to church quite a bit. On Sundays and shit, not allowed to watch telly, sitting there at the altar or whatever it's called and passing around baskets of bread and shit like that. But then when I moved to Auckland, fuck, everything flipped. My whole life flipped upside down without me even knowing it or knowing what the consequences of my choices were going to be. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, My parents left the decision in the hands of my 7-year-old self and just said, "Do you want to stay in Hastings or do you want to go with your old man and move away to fucking Auckland or whatever?" And like being that age, it was fucking pretty hard to. Like I say, it's pretty hard because I think about it now and I think that it'd be pretty hard. But in all honesty, like it actually wasn't too hard making the decision when I think about it properly. Because like I was predominantly with my old lady and stuff like that. So when I used to see my old man, it'd be every now and again and pick me up on weekends, or my nan would come pick me up on the weekend or something like that. But so like when it came to like making the decision about moving away or whatever, it was pretty easy because I almost like longed for like my old man. So I was like, fuck, now I get to spend heaps of time with him, after spending fuck all time with him every couple of weekends or so. So moved up to Auckland, did all that shit. I found it pretty hard at the start because I went from having everyone to having just me and the old man. And I went from no siblings at all, no mates and stuff. I had to make new mates and stuff like that. And it was like it'd be harder now because like I feel like being an adult it's way harder to make mates unless you're like pissed at a party or something like that. But back then it wasn't too hard to make mates. It was like just once I got into school, that's when I started fucking just sussing everyone out and whatnot. But I was still in like that little fucking that doggy dog little fucking puppy mindset where I was like angry at everyone and just wanting to fight everyone and be mischief and talk back and think I'm the shit and whatnot. Just thinking I'm having to be hearty all the time because that's what it was like back home. And then coming into like an environment like, like urban kids like this up in Auckland, fuck, it was like a complete shock and culture change and shit. And it was a bit different because when I was living in Hastings, I was like predominantly speaking Māori. Like my first language is Māori, even though I can't really speak too much of it now. I can understand it more, but my first language is Māori. So when I was coming up here, like I could still speak English, but it just wasn't. It was real broken English, and like some of the words that they were using up here, like compared to like at a Māori school, was just completely different. And I was like, what the fuck? So like it was a little bit of a struggle because before I moved away, I was only just getting to learn like all like my ABCs properly, like learning how to write them and shit when I moved up to Auckland. So I still had like quite a strong accent type thing. And like my nana used to tell me that she used to struggle when I was younger because, like when she'd pick me up, she'd be trying to like I'd be trying to ask for something like food or a drink or some shit like that, and I'd be trying to like ask her in Māori, but she's not Māori. She's fucking white as like a little angel. And yeah, she'd be like, "What?" And I'm like, "Oh, my tēnu, my tēnu," or something like that. I don't know, some shit like that. Anyway, um, so it was pretty hard when I first moved up here, and my old man was like quite like the lone wolf, I should say, because pretty much as soon as I got up here, like he was trying to like push me to get outside and just fucking go wandering and shit. Where like at the time I was fucking scared because it was unfamiliar territory and I didn't know what the fuck type of people were around here. Didn't know. Um, for all I knew, it could have been like fucking like Cripsters hard or whatever. Especially coming from like um like a environment just thriving with mongrel mobs and shit like that. I was fucking thinking up here like fuck, it might be complete opposite, and I might get stood over for the clothes that I'm wearing or whatever. So I was a bit hesitant going out, and I was like, oh fuck, like, do I have to? And then yeah, fucking go out and fucking try find some mates or some shit. So he'll just send me out, and I was just wandering the streets. I was like, at least back in Hastings when I wandered the streets, I was at least with like cousins and shit like that, or like siblings and stuff, and I was familiar with my surroundings because I grew up there and I was born there. Coming up here doing that shit, I was like, fuck, shit. And it was a bit dodgy, but I ended up just fucking going up to like the local mall and shit, up to the plaza. The coasties know the plaza. Came like a little plaza bum boy, little kid that fucking just hung out by the library and shit. And then the net caf came, and holy shit, that's us. We were hard out into the net caf. But yeah, I guess like my sort of younger years, even though there was like sort of challenges and shit, and like it was good getting out of Hastings because like down there, well, my old lady at the time, anyway, she was going through like I don't know, she was just living like the mob party life, and they'll just fucking get pissed and fucking just for days like moldies do, they'll just fucking go home, go to someone's house and fucking call up all the aunties and uncles that aren't even your aunties and uncles and fucking just rage for days and just crates on crates and fucking sing and play the guitar and fight and fucking scream, yell, make up and everything else. It was just like in my head, like when I think about it, it's like a normal moldy upbringing, to be around alcohol and drugs and weed and partying and fighting and shit like that. Like a lot of moldies who would probably watch this would be like, oh, yeah, that's just how it is, eh, my bro? I'm like, yeah, bro. And then like probably like a more Caucasian type person would be, a bit more like fucking holy heck. Because like even some of my white friends, when I'd like talk to them about shit, they'd be like, fuck, that's fucking out the gate. And I can't believe that you had to watch that shit. And like fucking like I've heard stories of like when I was like a fucking infant and in like one of those like little booster seat things that you like carry kids around in. Like they'd like sit me in the middle of the table at parties and shit and just blow me up and just fucking get me high as like a real toddler. And I was like, fuck, that's pretty buzzy. But it's just like that sort of shit, like I feel like as a normal, like so much people out there will be able to relate, where a lot of people would be fucking shocked and astounded to even think that anyone will be thinking of doing that to like a baby and shit. Where I grow up and I'm like, nah, that's just the norms, eh? If the baby's fucking crying and shit, you fucking chill it out somehow. Just like, but that's just like the process, like the brain or the thought process that I was brought up on type shit. And then obviously as I got older, shit started changing and I started realizing like, fuck, they shouldn't have been doing that shit. But it's in the past, you can't fucking change it. It's not like it's fucking killed me or nothing like that. So I wouldn't recommend it, don't fucking go out there fucking doing that shit. Um, like even like restricting the drinking and shit around your kids and stuff like that, might as well drop that in real quick. Don't drink around your kids or smoke around your kids or smoke weed or blow weed into their face when they're children and shit like that. But like that was just how it is growing up there, and that's just what the lifestyle is, So I'm not mad at it. It is what it is. And just fucking roll with the punches, I guess. But yeah, back to being like in Auckland and shit. Anyway, it was as time went on, like I fucking started managing to like deal with it, and by then I started making mates and shit like that. But it was still pretty hard. Like I'd still get down and out. Like sometimes I'd sit in my room and I'd just like not even do anything, just sit on the edge of my bed and I'd just fucking think about just my fucking family and shit, and just holding it down with my old man, and like because it was like pretty much like when I moved away, it was straight like cut off. You know, like every now and again, like we might go down to back to Hastings for Christmas and shit. But by the time like we started going back for Christmases and shit, um, my old lady and my siblings had moved to the South Island. So we'd go down there and like I think maybe like once or twice managed to maybe like three times max over like a 10-year period. I was able to you know, get on like a phone call with my old lady and my siblings sometimes. But my older sister Diana, she always stayed in Hastings. So at least it was like every time I went back I still got to at least see one of my siblings, and then you know, there was my little brother there too there as well. Yeah, he was like our whānau. He's actually my cousin, but he was like whānau into our family. We looked after him a lot. So he's just pretty much just like a fucking little brother, you know. I wouldn't call him my cousin. I wouldn't go, hey, cuz, you know, like fucking beat him up. Nah. But you know, and like similar situation ended up happening to me, you know, down the line where I was whānau and you know, which if you don't know what whānau is, it just means like you're adopted into another family. But you know, with Maldives and stuff like that, you know, it's not like you fucking sign papers and shit like that. You know, you just can you fucking look after this kid for a bit. You know, a couple of years later, fuck, they might come back pick you up. So like, you know, and then cousins and shit. So it's still all good. Get to see my grandparents and everything like that. Every now and again. But yeah, it wasn't until like I got fucking a bit older where shit started fucking fucking me up, I guess. I mean, like when I think about it, I think as I got older and I got more capability of understanding things, that's when I started feeling the effects of like the depression and anxiety and shit like that. Because when I was younger and I'd think about certain situations, my brain wasn't developed enough to be able to understand or break and digest those fucking experiences and stuff. And then as I got older, you know, I'd still be thinking about the same situations, but wondering why I was thinking about them. Then I got older some more, and then I started understanding and being able to break them down. Then I was like, fuck, man. You know, like, why haven't I fucking heard from my mum? Or, you know, why are we fucking always moving around? Or, you know, why is my old man fucking dickhead all the time? You know, like shit like that. Like, I wouldn't even say he was a dickhead, but he was a dickhead. But he was like a dickhead on purpose. You know, like he's like a hero that likes to play the villain. You know, like he's actually a good cunt, but at the same time, like he's a fucking asshole as well. So I don't know how to explain it, but he knows what I mean by that, because he even says like, you know, he's like so much of an asshole that if someone says that he's asshole, he's like, yeah, fucking what? You just fucking only just noticing that, man. I've been a fucking asshole since I was born, you know, type shit. Like that's what type of person he is. And yeah, so it's just like throughout the time of like growing up and just getting into a stage where I started understanding shit a bit more. That's when I started understanding like, you know, the type of lifestyle I was being brought up in or living in, you know, like when I was younger and there'd be people coming through the house all the time and shit. Um, I'd be like, fuck, my old man's got heaps of mates type shit. But then, you know, as I got older, I started understanding why he had heaps of mates. And, you know, because he was the popular guy. But that sort of like took me a while to understand fully, because him being so young, like to give you like a picture, my dad was 17 when he first had me. When I was first born, he was only 17. And then when I moved with him, um, when I moved with him, I was 7, so he would have been like 23 or some shit, or 24, something like that. So he was still real young, and it was just like it would have been hard for him to like understand how to like raise this kid, especially with his background. Like a lot of the time, I look at the stuff he's told me that he's gone through, and it makes me understand why he put me through the shit that he went, that he put me through. And it was just like a generational curse type shit. And I understand that. Like, I don't give a shit about that nowadays. I'm fucking 25 now, and I'm growing up and as I'm like on my journey at the moment with doing all this shit, I'm starting to learn a lot more about myself and everything else around it. Um, so yeah, like ultimately, like him living or being brought up the way he was brought up, fucking rubbed off on me, and I was brought up the way I was brought up because the shit that happened to him type shit. But but it was still all good. Like now I think about it, but then it was just hard to fucking deal with. It was hard because like I was always like trying to please him and shit all the time, like trying not really to like step out of foot, and then it just got to I just got to an age where I was just like, fuck this shit. I was like, fucking hell, you're fucking doing all this shit that you're doing, fucking playing up and fucking doing the shit that he was doing. And I was like, nah, fuck this, I'm gonna fucking do my own shit. And then I started like developing like my independence a bit and stuff. And like it was pretty hard, like, because like if anyone knows, like, if anyone out there's got like, parents that have been like fucking heavily addicted to like drugs and shit like that, like when they get into like these states where they've been up for days and days, like a lot of people know that they don't tend to eat, so there's not too much food and shit in the house at times, like there's fucking not really any food in the house at times. So like he'd give me money every now and again, but I know that in his head he gave me more money than he actually did. And I think it was because like a lot of the time he'd be so cooked that he'd think about it, but then he'd just forget because he's so on the go and he's fucking here, there, fucking doing whatever he's doing. But there'd be sometimes where he's on as and he'd hide money in the house, if he knew he was going to take off for like a couple of weeks or something. He might slip like a little $10 over here, a little fucking $5 over here or something. And that shit would have to last me, like 2 weeks or whatever, or whenever he fucking turns back up, or I'd like hit him up and be like, oh fuck, been a couple of weeks now. Like, is there any more money fucking around the house? And then he'd be like, oh fuck, hit up one of your mates and just tell them that I'll get them back when I get back. Whatever. But like shit like that ended up turning me into like down like the wrong path. Like I started getting into stealing and shit because not because I wanted to, but in order to feed myself, I'd have to start, like we're fucking stealing like steaks and shit, and like people would be like, what the fuck? As well as like, just fucking normal child shit that kids fucking used to steal when they were younger. But it got to a point where like I was stealing to feed myself, so I was stealing like fucking meat and shit and stuff like that, and I'd still buy something, like a 90-cent drink because I might have been able to scrape up some coins or something. But it got to a point, and like fucking that's where I rate my boys because back then they'd be helping me, they'd be fucking getting us some like like those fucking lasagna toppers and just fucking shit like that. We used to like, especially if we went to mine, because at mine we were allowed to do whatever, if we wanted to blaze or if we wanted to have a drink or anything like that. So it was always like good to go there and chill out, because my dad said like, he always said like, I'd rather you be under my roof, under my protection, and somewhere where I know where you are doing this fucking shit that you're doing, instead of fucking being in a park or hiding in a school, or just like he still had like that protective instinct about it, where he's like wouldn't really like be too fond of us like fucking drinking or whatever at home, but you know, he'd rather us drink at home instead of drinking in the streets and fucking being menaces and shit. So like we used to always go back home and stuff, and like so like obviously like when we'd plan to like do shit at home, you know, we'd fucking go for a little mission, go grab some food and shit, just to make sure they were able to like eat every now and again. But you know, like I fucking really appreciate all that fucking bullshit, you know, all the hard times that they bring brought up around like all the druggies and shit, because you know people are like, fuck man, like that must have been pretty hard, and I was like, nah, not really, because in the moment like it was just normal, you know, and like that's the thing is like when I start talking to people about like the shit that's happened and like stuff like that. I could get in depth with you, but then like this fucking conversation will be fucking hours and hours and hours long. Like, you know, I'm just trying to give you guys like a surface stuff, because is even the surface stuff is still quite long to talk about. And so it's just like I was always like still appreciative of like all the bullshit, because what people didn't understand is that the way my dad lived is that he needed me to grow up quick. You know, and by growing up quick, I mean he had me cooking dinners and shit by like 8, 9. You know, I was fucking full cooking dinners, knew how to, you know, like cook a fucking roast chicken, and knew how to cook like mince on toast or spaghetti bolognese or shit like that at a real young age. You know, he prepped me pretty well. So like when it came to being surrounded by a lot of people, like, you know, like I always think about this too, is like when I talk about, or when I talk with some of my friends and shit, and you know, like shit that they used to get up to with their old man and shit, they're like, yeah, bro, like we used to go fishing, and you know, he'd teach me how to play golf and shit like that, and you know, I'd fucking, you know, have family camp weekends, and you know, get taken away, or you know, family things like that. Where like when I was up here with him, like our fucking dad and son bonding sessions was fucking going to his mates' houses and fucking him just fucking doing what he was doing while I was just fucking chilling at his mate's house, and you know, just watching. I guess a lot of the times, like, you know, there's sometimes some of his mates might have like a PlayStation or something, and he'd be like, "Man, fuck, that's us, bro. Fucking chuck him on the game, bro. We just fucking go have a yarn in the kitchen." You know, and that fucking yarn turns into fucking 5, 6 hours of just talking shit. And I'm like, motherfucker, I'm hungry. Shit like that. But you know, like that's the thing, like we didn't really fucking do the standard father son shit. Like he might come down to like watch my games and shit, like my league games. But it's not like, you know, would go out doing shit as father son, like, you know, heaps of my mates and shit. Or just people around me, you know, I'd just be out and about, and I'd see fathers with their sons doing shit. Where like growing up in my younger years, you know, instead of going out and fishing or shit like that, we were fucking going out fucking making money, babe. By fucking, you know. But and like yeah, just getting back on is like that shit fucking made it in a weird way, like when I think about it in depth, it sort of like trained me and like molded me and helped me to grow up quicker in a way where I was able to deal with adults a lot easier, because I was always surrounded by them. You know, like go to houses and there'd be like fucking 6, 7 random cunts there. And then, you know, my old man's like, fuck, this is my son too, blah, blah, blah. Go around and meeting them, and then, you know, you sit at the table and want a fizzy? Yeah, bro. Sit at the table while they're fucking talking and whatnot, and then start getting on the yarns with some of his friends and shit like that. But because it was happening so frequently, that it made me get used to talking to adults about adult things and how to hold myself in a room of fucking full grown men, you know, from a young age. So I was like, fuck, you know. And I didn't really realize in the moment that sort of shit. It's only like now that I'm a bit older and I'm able to like look at shit like that, that I'm able to understand. And I think that's why it's getting to a point where like it's easier for me to talk on camera. And I can yarn for fucking ages. Like people who know me close, they know that I can fucking yarn and yarn and yarn. Like if you want to have a yarn, we'll have a yarn. You know what I mean? Like especially like cunts on the piss and shit. And like yeah, even on the weekend, like I've said in some other things before that, like I have like an attraction for people that want to offload. Like I'll meet randoms all the time, and then for some reason they just get to a point where they're comfortable and they just fucking offload their shit, and they're like, man, I've never told anyone that. And it was funny, like on the weekend, last weekend, I was at one of the bros' 21st, and um, his older brother's missus was talking to me, and like she was sort of just watching during the night, and like she said that like everywhere I went or like everywhere she would go, like the different rooms, I'd be in there, but someone would be like having like a real like deep and meaningful conversation with me. And then like she like hit me up during the night, and she was like, because I had told her before, I was like, yeah, I don't know what it is. Like people just tend to like gravitate towards me, and they just end up just offloading. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just a vibe I give off, or if it's just like a friend. I don't know. I don't know what it is. And that's yeah. And she said, she was like, it's so weird to like hear you say that sort of stuff, but then observing during the night, actually seeing it happen, and actually watching people approach you, introduce themselves, and then all of a sudden you guys are fucking having deep and meaningful. I'm like, yeah, fuck, I don't know what it is. I don't know what the fuck it is, but it happens and it's good. I enjoy talking, and because my mom, she's fucking how, man. Like a 10-minute convo turns into like 2 hours, and I think that's definitely where I get it from. And my old man too. I was born by two chatterboxes, so it makes me a fucking just yarner. I can just yarn and yarn. And yeah, so like I guess that sort of shit sort of prepped me up to grow up a lot quicker and just be able to hold myself a lot better in a room full of adults. Like I got to the point where I'd be like 10, 11 or whatever, and I'd be approaching people, sup bro, I'm two. Some of my old man's mates, I'd be approaching, sup bro, I'm two, I'm Josh's son. Oh, fuck, true, too much, bro. I heard a lot about you, bro. Blah, blah, blah. Into the arms. And then, obviously they'd ask how old I am, and I'd be like, oh, like 11. Like, fuck, I thought you were like 15, 16. And there's heaps of shit like that. Like a lot of my family and shit, they like talk to me about shit that's happened and shit that how they observe stuff, and they're like, you fucking had it pretty rough growing up, and your old man put you through a lot of fucking bullshit. And I was like, yeah, but at the same time, like I'm thankful. Like it was just a little bit harder than their parents, or it's just a little bit harder than most parents, but it's for a reason. And fucking me and him both agree that the way I was brought up fucking ultimately turned out for the best for both of us. And it's good that we can both acknowledge that, because there was a long time where I was just like, fuck man, it's like, fuck this motherfucker, can't believe that because he was treated like shit, he thought that he would like put me through shit. Like because in my head that if I had a son and it was just me and him holding it down, like I'd make sure that I gave him everything. I wouldn't like be restricting him, but at the same time, like my old man was like, I didn't get shit, so you're not gonna get shit. I was like, ratchet. I was like, ratchet. But now I understand, because like I can live with fuck all. I don't need much to be able to be happy now. Like I'm not into like the materialistic things. Like I'm not into like PlayStations and shit like that. People like fuck off now. Never brought a PlayStation in my whole life. Never brought no Xbox, nothing. Ever since I was a kid, like my dad fucking got given like a Sega when I first moved to Auckland, and I played it like 3 times in like a whole fucking lifetime. And like he he brought a PlayStation one time, but we weren't allowed to play the games on it. It was only for movies, you know. So it's like he really kept me away from like that shit and more pushed me to go outside and wander around and get street smart, you know, because that's how he learned was that, you know, he was out of school at like 10, 11. He was out hanging out with his older brother and mobsters and shit like that from a real young age. You know, he was fucking smoking, drinking, fucking doing fucking adult shit when he was just a fucking young pup. So it's no wonder why he got me to grow up quick. It's because he grew up quick. You know, and like me and him have talked about it, and it's about, you know, just breaking the generational curse. You know, I'm at a point in my life where I can dictate the future of our bloodline and our generation. You know, like I can be the one that changes, you know, like through his seed, you know, like his bloodline, I guess. And I'm at a point in my life where like, you know, his dad treated him like shit. His dad's probably treat his dad like shit, so on and so forth. And it got down to me, but now I'm at a point in my life and I'm at a in a stronger, better mind state than they'd be, and I'm able to break that generational curse and make sure that what happened to them and ultimately what brushed off onto me wouldn't brush off to um I guess my future generations and stuff like that. Which is like pretty, you know, it's pretty good. And like and not a lot of people are able to say that, you know. Like I've already done stuff that he never done, you know, like and that's what I mean about like I'm able to change the course of it all. And I've already started changing the course of it all. But you know, like it's now up to me to dictate it and make our bloodline into the bloodline that I think is going to be the most successful for future generations to come, type shit. So it's been pretty good. And like, yeah, like I said, so you know, after all that shit and stuff like that, growing up, my life fucking took a turn for the worst when my dad ended up getting locked up for drug shit. You know, I can't remember if he was fucking caught with stuff or if they had been watching him for a while or whatever. But you know, he ended up getting caught one night and getting arrested. And the next day, the day after he got arrested, they ended up raiding the house. And I was still at home. Like I was meant to be at school, but I was feeling a bit fucking down and out. Like I don't know if I just had a bad fit, like because like the night before my stomach started like playing up, and you know I had bad guts. I was fucking on the toilet heaps, and you know so like the next morning and like that night that I was feeling like sick and had like bad guts was the night that my dad got locked up, and I was meant to already be going to school. I was already meant to be out school, fucking in my first class and shit, but I decided to stay home that morning, and I was just in bed. And I didn't even hear anything. I didn't hear no knocking. Like they probably did knock, but I'm quite like a heavy but light sleeper. Like if I hear like loud shit, I can sleep through it. But if I hear like a whisper, I freak out. I'm like, what the fuck? You know? Like it's real weird shit. So like I must have not have heard them like fucking banging and shit. But they ended up busting into the house and stuff. And I still didn't hear them going through the house. They were fucking pulling drawers out and shit. They're coming through like the hallway, fucking opening up doors and shit. And I still didn't hear them until they opened up the door like to the room that I was in. They're like, fucking get the fuck out of bed. And they're like, fucking, you know, like, stay there, like yelling and shit. And I was only like, I was 15 or some shit. I was 15 and I was fucking woke up out of a daze and I was like, what the fuck? Just had like three big ass, like two big moldy dudes and like a white lad. And they were fucking, they, I think they had pistols anyway because they're fucking black, not unless their fucking tasers are black. But, and because my dad had previous charges I think the year before he got arrested for like claims of fucking like having a weapon or pulling a weapon out on someone or some fucking shit. So like they sort of knew that he was like somewhat in like dangerous position. Plus, you know, like being affiliated and shit like that with gangs and being entwined with like that side of the thing. They were sort of like cautious. So they're fucking, you know, drawing them, fucking get the fuck out of bed. And I'm fucking like, what the fuck? Like, fucking hell, what's going on? And then I like get up and because I just fucking sleep on my jocks. Like, I don't know, like that's probably normal or whatever, but you know, and then I stood up and the blanket came down and it must have looked like I was naked. And then, oh no, wait. Do you have clothes on underneath? And I was like, yeah, I'm in my undies. Like, okay, get the fuck out of bed. Shit like this. And then they fucking got me, fucking walked me into the lounge and shit. And, you know, I was fucking freaked out because there's heaps of cops in the house and they're just tearing the house apart. They're fucking flipping couches and fucking tipping all the cutlery everywhere, pulling all the no food out of the cupboards, fucking tipping shit upside down. I was just like, fuck, like, there was like a cop, like, I was sitting here, there was a cop sitting here, and like, I was fucking shaking and shit. And I was just like looking around, and he's like, mate, like, you know, like, attention, fucking look over here, I'm trying to talk to you. I was just freaking out, and I was like, what the fuck? And then he just started breaking it down to me, and he was like, hey, man, like, what's your name? And I was like, started talking to him, I was like, Tuhoe, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, how old are you? I was like, 15. And I think when he said like, oh, when he heard me say 15, it sort of took him back, and he was like, fuck. It's like, oh man, like, really sorry to tell you this, but you know, your dad's been arrested, blah blah blah. Pulled out like all the documents and shit, and he was like running them through, like with me about like all his drug charges that he was getting um, charged for and stuff like that. And I was saying I wasn't even able to read the words on there, like fucking, I don't know, prohibit, fuck, I don't even know, you know, whatever they write on all those court forms when they raid a house. And it was just, you know, they're fucking reading it through and whatnot, and I was just fucking shaking. Couldn't talk properly. I think I might have even like started crying and shit, maybe. I think like when I first started getting walked down the hall and I seen heaps of cops and shit through the house, that's when I was like fucking upset, and I was like, what the fuck? Never been through anything like that in my life. And then once he sat me down and we started yarning, that's when I started like sort of getting my shit together and starting to understand, like, you know, I think something in my head clicked and I was like, fuck, you know, I knew what the old man was getting himself into. I knew this shit could happen. You know, he was always wary about it. So yeah, when the cops fucking ran me through all this shit and they ended up leaving, like, fuck, the house was just a fucking mess. Absolute mess. And I was just like, rang up my boys, you know, I was just rang them all up individually. And I was like, fuck, man. And like, luckily, a couple of my boys were in Māori, and Messieurs knew my old man through like, because I got into kapaka and stuff. So he'd like come to the shows and shit, and they would have a yarn or whatever. And you know, they just said like, Miss, fucking Tuhoe's places have been raided. You know, we're just gonna fucking go over and just make sure everything's all good. So she actually let them leave school out of the first period just to come and check up on me. And like my boys ended up turning up. I think maybe Coast and maybe Putty and shit turned up as well. I think maybe all the boys. But then at the same time, I can't remember because it was like actually traumatic where shit's a little bit blurry. Where I can remember, you know, like a couple of the boys being there, but I just can't remember who exactly because I was still like quite in shock. But I can remember them turning up and they just walked in. They're like, "Holy fuck, what the fuck happened here?" Just told them what happened and shit. It's like, fuck, my house has been raided. Can you guys help me clean up? And, you know, they fucking straight into it. Started helping clean up and shit. You know, we ended up fucking having a blaze and whatnot. And then, yeah, after that, fuck, I ended up going in and I had to move to the South Island because I had no one up there. It was just me and my old man. I think my nan who used to live up there ended up, she was living in Hastings by then, or she was living somewhere else. My auntie who was living in Auckland, she's like a production director lady, so she was always on the go with documentaries and short films and shit like that. So ultimately, there was nowhere else I could stay. But in that time, like, sorry, in that time when my dad was going through like his probation or whatever it's called, like one of my mates, Coast, he ended up, his old lady ended up fucking taking me in, and it was fucking, it was intense because like at that time, like when I was sleeping at home by myself, knowing what had happened and what was going to happen to my old man, and just not having any connection with my family or my old lady or siblings or anything like that. Like I was in a pretty fucking dark place. Like I was 15, literally no one around. Like literally, the only person I had around was my fucking old man, and he had just got locked up. So I was like, fuck, man. Um, and I was just lucky because I was in like a mindset where I was willing to fucking give it all up, like at the end of the day. And it was like almost like a blessing in disguise type shit, because firstly, like a blessing in disguise, as I mean, like my dad got locked up and I was in a state of mind where I felt like there was sort of like no good, or there's no one good left in the world. There's no reason for me to like be around and shit. Um, there's just heaps of shit. I was just thinking everything I could think under the sun, and I was like, fuck, you know. So I was in that mindset and that blessing in disguise. Like when Coast Old Lady took me in, like it was like a lifeline to like let me know that there are still fucking good people in the world, and that like I may have not been surrounded by them, but when she threw me that lifeline, that was like that sort of gave me the indication that it was all good to stick around because like when there was no one, there was someone type shit. And then at the same time, like losing the connection with my old man because he was going inside, he managed to fucking get someone to get a hold of my old lady and get her contact details and shit. Managed to get me a ticket and fly me down south to reconnect with her and my siblings for like the first time in fucking 10 years or some shit. It was maybe 9 years, 10 years, 11 years, 9 years, 10 years. Fuck, I can't even remember. It was a fucking long fucking time anyway. So, like, it was a blessing in disguise because, yeah, I got to reconnect with them for the first time in ages. And it was just a surreal feeling. Like, and like when I went down there, I was like, fuck, man. I was in like the worst headspace I could be in, But I hit it real well. Like I've always been good at masking shit, like I've always been good at acting, and like even to the point like where my friends have been like, "Fuck, bro! Like you could actually take acting out as like a job, and you could probably fucking." Go somewhere with it, because I used to fucking get stoned and like do all this fucking weird shit and like pretend to like be two people, like fuck you, motherfucker. Like pretend to get like choked out and shit and just fucking dumb shit like that. And so when I fucking reconnected with my mum for the first time in ages and my siblings, like on the surface, I was like, yeah, fucking what's up, man? I haven't seen you guys in ages. Like, this is me. I hope you guys like what you see, type shit. Because it's not the real me. Um, and like, I managed to mask myself the whole time I was down there, but I was still thinking about fucked up shit. And at the same time, like it did get easier. Like the mask did come down, and I did start feeling like a sense of like belonging again. Because I was scared that that the family that I had been thinking about and asking questions about for so long would judge me and not like the person that I turned out to be. So I was like, fuck. I was fucking scared as because I was like, man, what if I go down there and they don't like who I am? Like they might think I'm a little asshole or something like that. But like they were just stoked. They were like, fuck, it's a little brother. Fuck, how are you? Oh, I'm my brother. Blah blah blah. And I was like, fuck, what's up, man? I was like, how's it going? Just buzzing out because like being isolated and separated from family for so long, I got trained out of certain like aspects of how to be around people. Like because I wasn't around family all the time, I didn't really know how to act around family. I was a bit standoffish, didn't want to say too much because around my friends, like I was around them that whole fucking 10 years that I was separated from them, like my family, so I only knew how to be the person that I was around them, which was just fucking say what I said, be who I was, did what I did type shit. But because, they were my family and my fucking siblings, my mum and shit, like I felt like there was more judgment because, like what if all those thoughts that I was thinking about as I was growing up were actually true? What if they didn't love me? What if they didn't want me and shit? And like, what if like me reconnecting with them, I did something and they're like, this is exactly why you fucking go already, you fucking cunt. Like this the type of shit that I was thinking about. And that's the thought process that I was in, like that's the shit that I was thinking about. I was like, fuck. So I was like quite like like I was standoffish a bit um when I was first down there. But like I said, I was good at acting, so like I still on the surface I'm yeah, now I've been made as like obviously the old man's gone inside and shit and but I'm so happy because at least I get to see you and shit. But at the same time, like what I just said, that's the shit that I was thinking. I was like, fuck man. What if they just turn around and they just go, nah, you're not the brother that we wanted? Or, you're not my son. What the fuck? Type shit. And it just used to fuck me up hard out. But I was down there for like 9 months and fucking it was a good 9 months because like the connection or now it might have been a little bit longer. No, I think it was around 9 months. I think my dad went in around like March, April or some shit. And I left there in December that same year. My dad got locked up. And it was, I was down there long enough to like at least start building the structure to the bridge, to keep that connection. Um, but then, yeah, I ended up moving back because, yeah, so like I ended up moving back to Auckland from down south after my dad and reconnecting with my old lady. But it was because my older brother fucking, it was the first time someone real close to me had like committed suicide. So it was my I guess not my first because like my first was in school. Like all the coasties will know, shout out Siko. He was the first, I guess, close or not close. Like he was just the first. How do I put it? Like the first person to commit suicide that affected, that affected me. Because he was in the friend group with all the bros and shit. Like me and him, we weren't like best mates or nothing like that. He had best mates just like I had best mates, but growing up on the coast, boys know the boys. And, like when we'd see each other at parties, like, yo, fucking what's up, bro? Blah, blah, blah. Talk about whatever the fuck we talk about, you know? So it was like, it was the first time, like, he was the first time that I had ever experienced it. But the first time I had ever experienced someone close was my older brother. And by older brother, I mean like my cousin, which is like my brother cousin. because like I said at the start, like, my little brother Tuhoe, he was whāngai in, and while I was up in Auckland, there was a point where my dad had to um, give me up to my auntie for a little bit, for like a year and a bit, because I don't know what the fuck was going on with it. I actually haven't even talked to him about it, so I don't actually know the reason, or else I'd tell you guys the reason why he dropped me off there. But I think he was just going through some shit. He said he had to take off, and he was just like, "Oh, you're gonna go stay with Auntie Paula for a bit." Um, so I was like, "Sweet as," I was just used to being fucking, here, there, and everywhere because that's just how life was. So I was like, "Sweet as," and then like over the time of being in that family, like it got to a point where Kingston was my cousin, but I've only just realized this like within this year. Like I was at my auntie's and shit a few months back. We were watching videos of like when we were like singing together and shit. Me, Kingston, and my little cousin Ebony. Little, I don't know how to like transfer the sister cousin into like a word, but yeah, she's my sister cousin. Just like he was my brother cousin. Um, but like it wasn't until I watched videos of us and he was jamming the guitar and we were singing and shit, and like me and Ed were, just trying to be like little like do some harmonizing and shit, and it was just funny. But like after watching those and I was driving home, like I realized that in that point of my dad dropping me off to my aunties and them whāngai me into their family and adopting me as one of their own, I didn't realize that Kingston wasn't just my cousin. Like he ended up being my brother, he ended up being my father for a bit, because he was the only male model in my life at that moment type shit. So like, and I've only just realized that now because growing up, like when he fucking passed away and he did what he did, like I used to always think for ages, like, why the fuck is this fucking me up so much? Because like I think like, and like after he passed away, um, I moved back to Auckland and shit, and yeah, I just used to ask myself like, I know that he's my cousin. Obviously I look at him like a brother, just like I look at my best friends as brothers. Like I'd die for them, just like I would have died for him. Just like I'd die for my dad, my whāngai little brother fucking Tuhoe, I'd die for that little dude. And I just used to ask like, fuck man, like why the fuck is this fucking me up so much? Like I understand that I look at him like a brother, but at the same time I'm still honest with myself enough to know that he was only my cousin. And it was only until this year where I realized after watching those videos of us singing and playing guitar together that he was more than just my cousin and my brother. He was my father at one point. So that's the reason why he played like such a big fucking part, and like why I fucking went on like this downward spiral, because after he passed away, it was like just fucking dealing with my old man, just the upbringing from the start, and then dealing with my old man being fucking in jail. I was like, fuck that cunt, like he fucking put drugs in front of his son, and like chose the pipe before his blood type shit. Like just the type of shit that I used to think about. And I don't think that anymore. Like I'm glad that he went to jail, because if he didn't, I probably wouldn't have reconnected with my mum type shit. So um so I was like, like I should just think that shit. And yeah, it's just fucking me up. But once I realized that in that time is the reason why I grew so connected to him is because he was three things that I longed for years in one type shit. It's just like that links 3 in 1 way. he was my links two in one. You know, he was fucking my dad, my brother, and my cousin at the same time, and that's why his death affected me so much, and it fucked me up. I started going downhill, man. Like I started fucking partying up more, getting into drugs and shit, like heavier. You know, started getting more into like the A class stuff. Um, and then in the process of that, like my missus at the time, you know, she was struggling, trying to hold herself together. I think she was struggling to hold herself together to be like a pillar for my broken ass, you know, because I was so fucked up from just all the shit that had happened. And then when he went and killed himself, it was like, fuck, you know, I was like, oh, hell. Now it's all fucking up in the air, you know, like, fuck. Now I fucking go out on the piss and I'll be like, motherfucker, if it's up, then it's up. Like, that's us, we're on type shit. And it just got to a point where like it was just putting a strain on the relationship, fucking shit like that. And like I knew because like she was saying to me that she was unhappy and shit and that I needed to like sort shit out. And like, you know, she wanted to fucking move into a house and she wanted to settle down and wanted to like start thinking about families and shit. And I'm like, motherfucker, like shit, I'm 17. I'm fucked up. You know, I'm fucking just trying to survive, you know, just so I can make it to an age where I can have kids. You know, I'm like, fuck. You know, so like I think like our call started fucking going like this and she ended up leaving and that was just fuck. Like even though I knew it was like something that was coming, like I just was so fucked up and feeling so sorry for myself about all the shit that had happened before that I was just like, fuck. I was like, fuck this shit. You know, and I guess like that was like that was probably like, you know, and there was I think it was the year after Kingston. So Kingston passed away in December, like mid-December. And it was like that following year, like a couple months into the year, we ended up splitting and like I was like, fuck, man. And that shit just like that was like I merely had my tippy toes right on the edge. And after that breakup, like I fucking just I was like fucking just dived head first off a cliff type shit. And, you know, I fucking quit my job and shit, you know, because my fucking mental state was just so fucked up. And like, you know, like even like, you know, I was turning up to work drunk, you know, straight from town to fucking work in my town gears. And, you know, I'd be so fucked up that I'd be like asking some of my, like, I've had one of my bros come into work and we're both just wired as fuck straight from town. And yeah, it's just, you know, like shit just started going fucking bad as fuck. Started getting hooked on like sniffing fucking heaps of fucking A class shit. I was just sniffing up like there was no tomorrow. But in a way where like I was purposely doing it, you know, I was self-sabotaging. You know, I was just trying to fucking everything. And I was like, fuck, just take more. Like once I quit my job, I have fuck. That's when the fucking shit just started getting fucked as I started just drinking like way more. Like it got to a point where we were probably drinking like 6, 7 days, you know. And it was like ratchet because like one of my bros ended up fucking coming along for the ride and they're like me and him fucking spent years and years and years together. You know, all the way from our Cedar Terrace track, you know, we ended up in the Kingdom, moved up, you know, and like that's what I mean. We're on some like druggy shit where we'd be like making up quirky names for like the places we lived and shit. Um, yeah, so like you know, he lived with us like in the trap, then moved out to the Kingdom, then moved up north and stayed in the valley. And like, you know, like me and him we were together for fucking, you know, we were fucking together living in the same houses for fucking like 6 years or some shit. 4, 5, 6 years. And like he just managed to like he was just a fucking good ass cunt. He had my back and I was so fucked up. And he probably knew that I was fucked, but he just I don't know. I've never really talked to him about it to be honest. But he just when we sort of have talked around the subject, he's been like, bro, it's been fucking mean as G. It's been through some fucking shit, G, me and you. And I'm like, fuck yeah. Bro, I've been through a lot of shit, G. And we fucking, like I said, we moved around and that's the thing, like when I quit my job and shit and I was fucking getting fucked up and I was dealing with just what I've just fucking talked about, at the start, like all that shit, came to a point where I was fucking trying to deal with it all. And I was only like, fuck knows, I was young. And when it sort of like all fucked out, I think it was like around 1920 or some shit like that. Fuck, I can't even remember because I was just so fucked up. Like, I even tell some of my boys, like, from like years, I don't know, like 2016 or 2015 to like 2018, 2019, I can't remember shit. It's just straight blank because I just fucked myself up so much. And I was doing it on purpose so I'd forget shit and I'd just forget about the pain. But that's the thing that I was fucking up on, was that I was so fucked up on the stuff and everything else, thinking that it was helping with the pain, but it was only masking it. It wasn't helping with anything because like it got to a point where I needed to detox. I needed to get away. So me and the bro Lee, we moved up north and decided to detox and get off the fucking hard drugs and wean ourselves down on the liquor so we're not drinking as much. But yeah, it was fuck, man. It was fucking hard as fuck. It was fucking hard as fuck. And if I didn't have the people around me that I did, I probably wouldn't be here speaking in front of this camera right now. So it's like, but yeah, and like I knew that I was self-destructing. I knew that I was self-destructing. People around me knew. And one of my bros, Coast, I've mentioned already, fucking, he pulled me up and he was like, "Gee, you all good, G?" I was, cooked as probably had been up for like 3 days or some shit. No sleep, fucking wired as fuck on it for all 3 days. And yeah, he just fucking hit me with it. He was like, "You all good, G?" And we were driving too. We were driving around, just hit the Silverdale sort of like Dairy Flat roundabout, like by the motorway. And we were coming from like Dairy Flat ways or like old Albany ways going into the coast, coming around the roundabout, and that's when he hit me with it. I was like, fuck, G, I'm all good, G, I'm fucking cooked as G. And he's like, nah, G, like, are you all good? I was like, fuck. Yeah, nah, I'm all good, G. I'm safe as. He's like, G. And he like did the side eye. G, like, bro. I was like, yo. He's like, G, are you all good? Like, bro, you can tell me, G. And I was like, fuck. Fucking just sort of broke down a little bit. And I was like, fuck, bro. I'm not all good, G. I was like, fuck, I'm fucked, bro. I'm fucked, yeah, I just want to fucking die, G. I'm fucking, I don't know what the fuck I was saying. Like, once I actually said I'm fucked, like, so everything just, and I was like, okay, what to do now? And I was just like, started thinking about, like, I think we ended up going back to a party or some shit. And I just fucking simply got smashed as. And then over the next couple of days, I was just thinking about it. I was talking to my flatty Lee because we're staying in the kingdom, and I was like, gee, I can't keep doing this shit. It's like, bro, I'm fucked, bro. Like, need to fucking get out of here, G. because if I don't get out of here, bro, like I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen. But I know it's not gonna be anything good. And we started looking at like, full just skipping the country. Like I was like lining up, like with some of my family over in Aussie, seeing if there was any work and shit around there. But for some reason things just worked out and we weren't meant to go over. We weren't meant to go over. And his dad ended up hitting us up and going, "Oh, the house that I have up north, needs a bit of work and shit. Like, you guys can go up there, stay up there for cheap, do a bit of shit around there and like maintain it for a bit." And like me and him were like, "Fuck, that's perfect, bro. Like, at least we can like get away, we can detox, but we're only a couple of hours away. That if we do want to come back and catch up or for a party or birthday, we can, because we sort of knew that like no one's going to be fucked to be able to come visit us. Like we had people visit throughout the years, and it was mean as because like most of the time it was always us going down. So it was a fucking hard road up there too because like when we first moved up there, like we had no plan. All we knew is that we need to get out of here and detox, or it's just going to turn sour. It's just going to get fucked up. So we went up there, no plan. Fucking ended up on the Benny. We're both surviving off like $79 a week, a week, and like we didn't fucking have like got to a point where didn't even have a car and shit, and we're fucking staying in the middle of nowhere. So, like the bro had like a little like 50, maybe like a little 100cc fucking dirt bike, and boost that up to the fucking fish and chip shop, like couple fucking k's up the road, or it got to the point where he'd like fucking hitchhike, hold a sign, stand at the end of our driveway, Itaka Valley shops, type shit. So like it was fucking struggle streets hard, for that whole for years from, like fuck man, it was just fucking hard shit. It was fucking hard and it was hard to deal with and it was hard to fucking think about it. And think about the best way to go around everything. And I was like, fuck sakes. And I was like, fucking hell. But at the same time, I knew that like what we were doing at that time with the whole fucking detoxing and doing shit like that, it was going to work out the best, in my head, it was the best thing we could do was to go up there, detox, and fucking get the fuck out of like the headspace that we were in at the time. And like during our detox, we found that shit started getting better for us. I mean, he started off with what's it called? He started off with like this fucking thing called Neighborly, where like people in the community go on Neighborly and they just put out like it's kind of like a Facebook, but for like neighbors, and like they'll do like call outs and shit of they'll put like little statuses and shit being like, "Hey, is there anyone out there that's keen to make a quick buck? I need some weeds pulled or something like that." So, like he'd jump on that and he'd fucking go do little odd jobs and shit. And it was good for him because most of them were cashies, so he was getting full money for everything. I reached out to the Benny and I was like, "Yo, fuck man, like, is there any jobs out there?" They ended up getting me into like Akumi's fucking kumara picking and Dargaville. I'd fucking have to get up at a certain time and catch the bus out to Dargaville every morning. It was all good. I was like, fuck man, that's pretty intense. But it's better because like I went from having like $79 a week to having like $360 a week. I was like, gee. I was like, fuck, that's us, bro. And then as time went on, just we fucking got off the A class, and it was started thinking a lot better. Things started getting a lot easier. We're just doing our best with what we had at the time, and I think the universe was sort of like, rewarding us for it because like a job came along in like a paint and panel shop that I ended up taking, and like I was in the paint industry before I fucking lost my shit and then had to move away and detox. So it was good to find another thing in the paint industry. Um, and when I started painting and like working in the car shop with Camnet, if you guys live up north in Whangarei, you guys need some, I don't know, like some panel or paint stuff done to your car, or need a polish, or just need some shit done, you know, you might be in a crash, got a couple dings or whatever, go to Prestige Auto Customs up in Whangarei, and go see Cam. You know, he's a good dude. They fucking produce some good work. Or you'll probably run into Scotty, actually. I think Scotty's running, managing that side of the stuff. So you'll probably run into Scotty. But yeah, up in Whangarei, Prestige Auto Customs. I think they're on Facebook, and they probably got a website and stuff. But that was sort of like the chance that allowed us to flip our lives into, you know, what it's unfolding into today. Um, I worked there long enough and proved myself enough that, you know, I asked him if there was any chance that my bro, or he might have asked me, he might have been like, fuck, you know, do you reckon your bro would be keen to do a couple of days? So I asked Lee, and, you know, when I asked Lee, Lee was like, fuck yeah, that's us, brother. I was like, yeah, bro, like, that's us, G, let's go to the car shop, G. I was like, phew. So we were just holding it down at the car shop for a while. And it was mean. I rated it. But like all good things, they fucking ended up coming to an end. You know, I still fucking rate my time there, and Cam's a fucking good dude, man. Like he's fucking funny as fuck. Scotty and that, you know, the boys down there. He's probably got a completely different crew now because I've been away for a little while, but yeah, it's a good place. And yeah, like I said, like that's sort of when things started flipping, and you know, like it was probably like reached like 2.5 years around about being up there detoxing, and that's when I started, like I gave myself the ultimatum. Like it got to a day where I was just fucked as my head was all over the place. And it was like one of those like real dramatic fucking, you know, I was in the bathroom, just had a shower, wiped the fog from the mirror. And I was like, fuck. I was just like, fuck, just looking at myself, man. And I was like, fuck. So what the fuck is this? You know, like when I looked at myself, like all I seen was like black. And I looked into my eyes, like all I seen was like a dead soul. And I was fucking, and I was like thinking to myself, like, who the fuck is this? Like, what the fuck am I doing? I was just fucked. And I was, you know, started crying and shit. I was like, you know, I was fucking bawling my eyes out. And I was like, man, like, fuck that. I was like, today's the day. I was like, fuck, today is the day. Today is the day that I'm gonna fucking make a choice. And I was like, you know, looking at myself in the mirror, I was like, you fucking motherfucker, make a choice right now, you fucking motherfucker. You know, and this is like how I was talking to myself, like, you motherfucking piece of shit. You fucking, you know, and I was just like, you know, you need to fucking make a decision right fucking now. Like, if you're gonna do it, you know, I want you to go out the back and fucking do it right now. If you're not gonna do it, I want you to start making the changes that you need to make in order to get you to where you want to be. And in that moment, like, I said, fuck, I have to do something. I was like, man, like, I've been through too much shit. I was like, fuck, there's no way that all this shit's happened for no reason. And that's what I always told myself. I was like, this shit does not happen for no reason. Like, I was like, there's got to be a reason behind this shit. I was like, fuck. And I thought about it, and I was like, fuck it. You know, I was like, nah, I'm not going to let this shit define me. I'm not going to let it fucking, you know, I'm not going to let these life experiences uh, change my heart, you know? Because, like, I always know that, like, you know, even people around me, they're like, fuck, you got a good heart, bro. You know, you're a good dude. You know, you've always meant well. You've always wanted the best for people. You know, even, you know, during, like, my worst, you know, people be like, bro, I didn't even know you. Like, you know, fucking, during that time, you helped me out do this, this, and this. I'm like, fuck, bro, I can't even remember, bro. Like, straight up. Like, and it was just, like, that's what I realized is that I had let life change me. Um, and, it changed me for the worst. And I was like, fuck. I was like, like, I need to figure out if all this shit has happened for a reason, because I've been telling myself that there's got to be a reason for it. Like, this type of shit and all this shit doesn't happen in such a fucking short time for no reason. Like, there's got to be a reason why these trials and tribulations have unfolded the way they've unfolded. And I decided to make a 5-year plan. And this year's the last year of 5 years of the plan that I made before moving back to Auckland. So I was in my last year living up north after the detox. I gave myself the ultimatum: today you fucking either die or you start making the changes that you want to make in order to get to where you want to go. So in my last year up there, started studying digital marketing, because I know that with the rate of technology, if you're not getting into any digital aspects, you're going to be left behind. So I started getting into studying digital marketing, and I made a 5-year plan of I'm going to start getting studies in, not necessarily so I can start shit straight away. I was just I was more thinking I want to develop the tools that I think I'm going to need in order to create a successful future for myself. So I started getting into studies of digital marketing. And I said, I'm gonna take myself, and I'm gonna put myself right back into the middle of the environment that was killing me, and I'm gonna make sure that I come out on top. And I was like, and in the process of putting myself right in amongst the environment that was trying to kill me, I said I'm gonna I'm gonna do well in my work. Um, I'm gonna start working on myself, start working out. I wanted to sort out my health. I wanted to get healthier. I wanted to start working out. I wanted to start feeling better about myself. And yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I wouldn't fall back into the same shit that was killing me, that I was running from, pretty much. I wanted to go back and face that shit head on. So like I decided that I'd go back to Auckland and eventually I'd start getting off the liquor, and I'd start getting off the A-class drugs and stuff like that. So I did. I fucking did. Finished up the rest of the year up in Whangarei, did digital marketing studies, just personal, not through like no AUT or some shit. I'm not about putting into the pockets of the filthy rich who fucking just ream every uni student and shit like that. So I just took it upon myself to, like you can just go on Google and shit and just like research their mock shit, and then you can just go study about the shit that is going to be in their mock exams type shit. So that's what I did. I started just like looking at, it might have been like 2018 or some shit. I'd be looking at their 2016 documents, you know. Um, so I started doing that shit. And I was like, do this, I'll get healthy, I'll get off the drugs, I'll fucking make sure that like I stay off them. So I tested myself and started going out to parties and shit. And people like I was still fucking I was still drinking then, but I was I had to take it in steps, because if I tried to drop myself into the environment and try to cut it all in one go, that's when I would have fell back into the same thing. So I just tackled it one thing at a time. Joined up to the gym first when I moved back. Like got my job, joined up. Like fucking stayed with my bro and his missus. Started going to the gym. Started switching up my eating. I had to tackle it one thing at a time. And then after doing that for a bit, I started allowing myself to go out to parties and shit. Still having a drink, but being in being in amongst the friends that I was in, it was as easy as, hey bro, have this, and I had to make sure that I was checking myself at the parties, even when I was wasted. I could have been drunk as shit, but I wouldn't let this voice turn off and be like, bro, fuck that. So like I'd be wasted as in the bros, hey bro, I have a bump. Nah, I'm all good, G. Fucking, that's why I moved up north to fucking detox with that shit. Bro, mean, G. Fuck, that's, bro, you wrong, G. Like shit like that. And so people around me started learning quickly that I was not dealing with that shit anymore. And that, the reason why I moved away and I was absent was because I was fucked, you know. And like, it was shit because during that absent, like, in the process of fucking healing and shit, like, I fucking let a lot of relationships and connections fucking fade. And it's something that I still think about now. I'm like, man, like, especially with my girls, because like my boys, like they're my brothers, like, blood wouldn't even separate. Like there's just nothing that could happen that would make me believe that they're not my brothers. Like to me, we came out of the same pussy type shit. You know, um, and like I had girls. Like boys have the boys, girls have the girls. I managed to have the best of both. I had like a solid boys and I had solid girls, and we were like a solid unit. But yeah, during the fucking detoxing process, um, yeah, fucking my connections with my girls sort of like faded a bit just because, and with my boys too. Like it wasn't just my girls, it was boys as well. Like, um, yeah, I don't know what it was. It was just I just disconnected myself from everyone, and when I moved back, it was a little bit different because I just wasn't as tight as we used to be, and like even nowadays, like it's shit, but it's not shit because I know that's just life and how shit goes. Like I still fucking check in on them every now and again. Like I used to check in on them like every week. I'd make sure that I just check up on the girls and the boys and just make sure that they're doing all good. But not knowing that in that time I was doing that I was only doing that to distract myself from the shit that was going on inside of me. I was using them as distractions to distract myself from dealing with the problems. And when I fucking realized that, and I started dealing with the problems, I then didn't need them as much to distract me because what I was using them to distract me from, I was now dealing with. So it was kind of hard, and like now it's like everyone's growing up and shit. I mean, most of the girls have kids, and well, like a lot of the girls have kids now, and like I still check up on them every now and again. I'll send them a message and just hey, just been thinking about you. Hope you and your family are all good and stuff like that. And obviously, like back then we were younger, so like it was different because like now people more like families. It's not like we're out like they got new boyfriends every week like they used to type shit. Like well, not every week. That's a bit bad to say. Like every like couple months or whatever. So back then like there wasn't really like that block between like the males not allowing their girlfriends to have like male mates where like there was the difference between us, like between my group anyway, is that I didn't look at us as mates really. I looked at us as brothers and sisters, and not a lot of people like fuck, like I don't know, it was just hard dynamics. But obviously when you grow up, like they're like you start having families and shit, and connections and shit start fading. But I still check up on them when I can and whatnot, and just let them know that I'm thinking about them every now and again. But that was one of the hardest things though about coming back, was that just the ties and the knots not being as tight anymore. but then at the same time still understanding that that's life and that's how things play out, you know. Um, and yeah, and like once I started like doing that 5 year plan, like within that 5 year plan, I started adding more shit into what I wanted to accomplish, the things I wanted to do to become the person I wanted to become. So started doing more studies, but in like not in like a business aspect, but more in like a learning aspect because I started thinking like if I'm able to intake more information, it'll be like, like I'll only be able to store so much. So if I get full capacity, I'm gonna have to delete some of the old shit, including some of the shit memories that I had growing up. And I'll have to like replace them with some of the new shit that I'm learning. So I started like wanting to like learn heaps about just like where humans came from and because like in the process of trying to figure out where the fuck I wanted to go, who I wanted to be, I felt real lost. And I had like a thought like the only reason why I'm so lost is because I don't know where I come from. And I don't mean as in like a moldy, you come from the islands type shit. I mean like, like the whole purpose of human civilization. So I started like looking into ancient history and started looking back to like the first civilizations of, the Babylonians and the land of Babylon. Just shit like that, like pyramids of Giza and how the fuck people build that shit when they apparently are, less advanced than we are today, but we still can't replicate any of that shit. And I was like, fuck. And it just fucked my head up. And I was like, holy shit. Our motherfucking world is built on lies, bitch. I was like, fuck. And it just opened up my mind to fucking just a lot more shit. And I was like, fuck, too much. And then, like I always wanted to get into um something to do with mental health, whether it be like a social worker or something like that, working with kids or with people who have violence in the home or drug stuff in the home or stuff like that. But then when I started getting into research about social working, like I'd consider myself like a bit of a rogue, like I just fucking like to just do what I want to do without having to worry about shit. Or like I just do what I do and just try and act like nothing's happening type shit. Um so like when I started looking at social worker side of things, I was like, nah man, there's too much restrictions, it's too much rules. Like you're telling me that like you're only allowed to help this kid for a certain amount of something before you have to just toss them to the side and just hope for the best. I was like, fuck that shit. In my head, that process of the social working system is just a fucking way to make money for the fucking big dogs. I'm like, man, they're just, yeah. And I always wanted to help because I know I've got a good heart. Um, so instead, decided to do this instead, start up a podcast, and as time goes on, it'll be more than just a podcast, it'll be a place of salvation. It'll be a place where people can come when they feel like they've got no one else. Um, it'll be a place where people can connect and share stories with people going through the same shit, and around and like the best thing about taking it this way and starting up my own project is that um, I can have it turn out the way I want it to turn out. There's not going to be any rules and regulations, restrictions, as you guys have already seen. Like through the earlier pods and stuff. People are like, "Oh, bro, like, is it all good if I swear?" I'm like, "Motherfucker, swear." Like, just be your authentic self. Like, if you talk and you're a swearer, swear. If you're a Christian and you don't swear and you use God a lot, use God or whatever. Like that's the thing that it's sort of like I'm still on the fence about is putting a bit of more structure in behind the pod and stuff because a lot of people are like, oh, what kind of stuff we're going to talk about? What questions are you going to be asking? And I'm like, I would not have a clue. Like there's no structure to the podcast. It's literally just two humans getting together, conversating, and whatever comes naturally from the conversation is what comes naturally. Because I think once you start having like things like questions, like set questions and stuff like that, that's when it becomes daunting and it restricts people on wanting to open up. Um, and it gives it more of like an interview feel when it's structured, where I just like to yarn, and I'll just bounce off your conversations. My questions will be based around, stuff that I've just picked up, during the convo. And for me, like that's how I am as a person. Like I'm not too structured in a way where I like to just cruise and stuff like that. But I'm still structured in a way where if I need to get shit done, I can get it done. Or if you need me to help you sort shit out, I'll get it done for you or stuff like that. Like I only set structure to shit that I feel needs to have structure to it. But if this was more, if the pod was too structured, I feel like it would restrict what people would want to talk about and the flow of the conversation, you know, and that's something that I didn't want. I wanted this to be just nice, natural, flowing conversations, and it makes it a lot easier to deal with. Like it's not as daunting. Um, like I don't know. Yeah, I just don't feel like it's as daunting when, like at least like because like a lot of the time at the start, people ask me questions, and I'll be like, nah, man, like it's whatever you want it to be. This is your episode of the pod, and this is mine, this is yours. So however you want it to turn out is how you ever want it to turn out. I'll just fucking cut and edit the bits that I think. But there was one thing what I wanted to start with was one thing why I wanted to start this. My bad. Was that because I'm just not too much of a structure type. I do need to put somewhat structure into this, as in like like planning how it's going to be produced and maybe more better time management, or I want to switch up the logo and shit. But my main reason um, on starting up the pod was just to get my foot in the door, to start giving back, you know, and ultimately, I just knew that I was meant for more. Like I don't know I don't know how to explain it. Like I just knew I was always meant for more. Like I don't know what I was meant for. I just knew that I was gonna be something more than just the average. Like since I was young, like I always felt like I don't know. There's always something riding on me for some reason. Always felt like I've had like this burden on my shoulder, or always felt like never satisfied. Like I've never felt satisfied with the person that I am, and I will always just strive to become better and better and better every year. Like every year, I evolve into something better than the year before, and with people like that, I've, in all honesty, like people who've got that drive and who are like that, they're just always destined for greatness. And I've always told myself that I will be something great, and I will become something, and I'll become something in multiple things. Like I'll be great and like not just fucking like mental health podcasting, helping people understand life situations and that sort of realm of things. But I'm gonna fucking kill it in the music industry when I eventually start heading down that path. And talking about because one thing like a lot of people don't really know, or only select few people knows that. I've always sort of been entwined with music ever since I was young. It's always sort of been around me, and there's one thing that I use to help me get through all that bullshit. And there's a project that I wanted to bring out for ages, and it's something that I started in my roughest times. In my darkest times. I felt the best way to get shit out because I wasn't able to talk about it was to write it down. And naturally, like, I was fucking just good with my words. I've always been good with my words. I've always been good with, like, music type stuff, and the arts and creativity side of things. So, like, it was, and music's always been like one of my biggest passions. Like, and like that's the thing. Like, I've had people close to me, like ex-partners and shit, said that I'd never fucking fucking do anything with music and shit. And like, I love that shit when cunts are like, bro, you'd never do that. I'm like, motherfucker, you watch, bro. I'll like, and obviously, like, people are like, fucking whatever, fucking all shit. But you fucking motherfucker mark my words, like, and that's the thing. Like, I'm in a point in my life where I've started, like, my mind's fucking shifted into a higher consciousness. So I know that there's actually nothing that can stop me now. I've fucking fought with the fucking scariest demons that I've ever seen in my whole life. I've fucking had them flying around me while I've had shit around my neck, and I've had fucking demons try to possess me once while I was holding a knife to my chest type shit. Like, there's just nothing that phases me, and I fully accept death for what it is. Like, I've lost so much people in my time that death is just not scary for me anymore. Like, if I died tomorrow, I'd be happy because at least I know I get to go and see, my loved ones that I've been missing and shit like that. And I can fucking, tell people, fuck you, bro. Your fucking death fucked me up. But what's up, motherfucker? Type shit. Um, so I know that, like, the drive that I have now that I've gained and that I guess, like, unlocked. I knew I always had something in me that I was going to become something great, and I knew that I was going to become something great in different aspects of life. And it's just taken me this long to be able to build myself strong enough to be able to start accomplishing those things. But I'm smart about it. I'm not going to fucking try to do all these things at once and then have all these unfinished fucking projects here, there, and everywhere. I'm definitely a tactical type when it comes to thinking in the future, and I know how to, tackle things one at a time. I can multitask, but when I think about it tactically and what I'm wanting to achieve and what I'm wanting life to be like and what I want to accomplish within myself, I know that my tactical plan for the future has to be done in the way that I've planned it in my head in order for it to work successfully. So there'll be music and shit coming eventually, and like I said, like, it was fucking some of the hardest times of my life when I was writing. So one of the projects that I started, just to give you guys a bit of insight on what could be coming, in the future, and what is probably going to be coming in the future, with, like, what the music projects would sort of look like and sound like. Like, there'll be, like, all the fucking, like, party stuff, that I was fucking making when I was fucking fucked up, having a good time, living life and masking all my problems and shit. But then there's the ones that, I was writing in my darkest times. And, like, that project there would probably be one of the most meaningfuls because the project was based around me writing letters, well, like, suicide notes, to every person that I love, all my friends and shit, my parents. And I was writing them all individual letters, like goodbye letters. And I managed to find them again in my iCloud and my notes and started going through them. And I was like, fuck, man. Like, that's such a meaningful project to me because, like, not only is it going to give insight to the people that I'm writing to on where my headspace was at, but it's going to give insight to people who are only just starting to learn my story about how deep and how dark I was and how far I've come from that point in my life, And the project itself was called something like Letters Before I Die or something like that. Yeah, so there's heaps of shit, and I know that like whatever I want to do, I'm going to be able to do now because my fucking brain's just in a different fucking aspect or different frequency and all that shit compared to what it used to be. And like that's what I mean. Like I'm in a mind state now where I'm going to go for the shit that I'm going to go for, and if I die in the process, it is what it is. Like I'm going to give everything my all. And like there's that saying where like I've probably mentioned it before, but like they say a person's life only starts when they realize they have one. And I've realized that I've only got one life. And, since realizing that, I've started up this podcast and shit and, using this podcast to teach myself and learn how to open up, with you being the audience. And, like you guys don't actually know how much this fucking shit actually helps me hard out. Even listening to other people and stuff that they've been through and shit, and just seeing the relations and similarities and stuff between stories and whatnot. And like, yeah, that's the thing is, you guys watching it is giving, I guess, validation to let me know that I am on the right path and that what I am doing is helping people, and I'm just doing the right thing to accomplish the right thing. And like the reason why I wanted to start the podcast and shit is because I didn't want to get paid. I didn't want to make money off helping people, like I've said before, and that was the best way for me to help people without actually having to get paid for it, was to start up like a podcast and create a platform for fucked up motherfuckers to talk about some fucked up situations and shit. Stuff like that. But yeah, fucking other than that, man, like that's pretty much where it's at the moment. And with all the fucking podcasts and shit that's played out through the year, I just want to give a big thanks to everyone who's jumped on, man, like this year. Like as much as it is me doing work, like that shit wouldn't be going out without yous. So, like fuck, give you guys a big pat on the back, because that's going to be the biggest and most challenging thing, is convincing people through a digital platform that it's okay to open up, and that this is a place where you won't be judged. You can be who you are, Like if you want to fucking come on the pod and you want to talk about fucked up shit that's happened, but you can only do it if you got a bottle and a ciggy, bring your bottle and ciggy on and fucking open up and let it out, Like this podcast is going to be the most realist, rawest shit that people have ever seen type shit, like when it comes to dealing with emotions like that. Like a lot of people, like especially the more professional side of things, they're a lot more like interviewish, where they got like 10 cameras set up, and they're fucking flipping in between like all these different facial expressions of the moment and like the whole scenery and stuff, where it's just going to be two people face to face bearing it all, and just bearing it all in, just letting it all out and leaving it all on the table, just so it stops eating us from the inside out. And yeah, just without the people who have jumped on, from our very first, from Kelly, all the way to our very last, Madama, and everyone in between, like it takes guts to get up and talk about shit like that, and I encourage more views out there, like there's so much of us that are fucked, man. Like we just need to stop pretending like we're not, and stop masking it with all this fucking liquor and shit, because it fucking doesn't help. Like it helps for the moment, but like you could start a drug because it helped you that night, and then 10 years down the track you're fucked as of that drug, and you're sitting there going, what the fuck is my life like this? It's because you fucking try to mask your problems with something that you shouldn't have masked it with, you decided to neglect your responsibilities of looking after yourself and making sure you provide the best life you could for yourself. That's the reason why you're fucked up type shit. So it's like kind of, yeah. And, as for next year, like, shit will be completely different. I mean, I'm getting a bit more used to the software and shit now. Um, so it's making it a bit easier to edit and stuff. And everything's still up, we'll still be up on Spotify, stuff like that. But, as for that, like this whole journey that I've been on with the mental health stuff and trying to open up, trying to normalize the conversations that we should be having anyway. This fucking heavy shit, like people like, oh shit, like I wouldn't want to talk about that. It's like, yes, but that's what I'm talking about. Is you need to talk about that, because if you don't, like I was in exactly the same shoes as every other kind. Like I was like, bro, fuck that, like especially like I had to like keep like this somewhat hard aspect about myself. I was like, psh, yeah, toughen up, man. You know, fuck, you're all shit there. You're just a little bitch. This is, it was a shit mindset to have. But now we on, baby. We fucking out here, ready to change lives, ready to help people out. And like next year, I'll be looking at doing like giveaways and doing food parcels for families and shit like that. If there's of you watch this and you think fuck, it could be something that I want to start looking at, maybe helping out. And you might own like a food restaurant or something, or you might own like work at like a fucking stationery place, or you might want to give back but don't know how to give back to your community or whatever. Reach out to me and I'll make up like packages and stuff like this that we can as a team distribute out to families in need and stuff like that. Because I've had a couple people like, hey bro, like I'm keen as to help you out, behind the scenes of things, and whether that's like getting food parcels and shit ready, or stuff like that. And so it's there's going to be some good things that come out of next year, and I think we'll be looking at making some real solid changes into our communities and stuff like that. So keep an eye out for next year. And over the holidays and stuff as well, we're coming into the break. It's going to be busy on the road. A lot of people out, a lot of families out. Stay safe, especially on those roads. Like, make sure that you take time, plan your fucking routes and shit. Just if you're tired, pull over, take a fucking 20-minute nap, or something. Just look after each other. And yeah, other than that, I'm probably have to leave you with that. But thank you for the support, that I've had during the year. Man, like I've had so much fucking messages and shit, even from randoms, like random people that I don't even know, messaging me and like, good on you, bro. Like, appreciate what you're trying to achieve out there, need more people like you. I'm like, fuck, man. Like that shit gives me the motivation and allows me and validates that I'm on the right track and that my purpose and giving back is exactly what it is. So keep it up with like all the messages and stuff. But if you guys are keen to jump on the pod, like just send me a message or reach out or comment in like the videos or stuff like that. Just let me know that you're keen and I'll entwine you guys in, because at the end of the day, like the pod's only going to work if we're there as a team or as a community to help each other out. And the more people that are keen to get on, the more episodes, which means that, the more episodes there are, the more chance people are going to watch and be able to connect with someone, and who knows, your story might change someone's life. They might be like, oh my God, I've seen you on Positive Past podcast. And fuck, man, your story changed my life, because of you. I've done this, and this. Like I'm already getting messages, and I've only just started like within like the month or 2 months where people are like, bro, I've really, listened to some of your messages. I've taken it in. I've applied some of the tools that I've learned from blah, blah, blah through the podcast. And I'm starting to see some positive changes. And I'm like, fuck, that's so mean. So, if you guys are keen to help out or you guys want to contribute and like jump on or whatever, next year it'll probably change up a little bit. I might put a bit more structure into the layout of it, but not in the natural flow of things. But other than that, I guess wrap it up with just stay safe and the recap. I'm fucking glad with how this year's gone, how the podcast has rolled out. So grateful for the people who have jumped on. Glad where my life is at the moment and how far I've come, and I'm just glad that you guys are along for the ride and you guys get to witness the shit that's about to happen and how I'm gonna change New Zealand. So I'll see you guys in the near future anyway, but keep up to date with my Facebook and shit like that, because I'll be posting up more fucking walks and talks and sit chats and whatnot up on there. So keep in tune and watch the space and make sure you jump on it, because you don't want to miss out and get left behind. So peace. Chee. Turn on the radio.